Hello, everyone. Hello, everyone. Hello, all internet. My name's Angela Tharp. This is Certified Black Weirdo, where we celebrate the art of one weird black artist a week. And we talk about what we loved about it, what was weird about it, what was cool, what it reminded me of, at least, and so on. So anyway, this week we're talking about Vince Staples' show, the Vince Staples show, specifically the Black Business episode, which is really, really good. And yeah, we're going to jump into it. And let's see, what else? Is there anything else I need to say up top? Not really. Stay warm. Stay warm in the storm. And let's get into it. Bye. All right, so let's get into it. Thank you for being here. Today we're talking about the Vince Staples show, specifically the Black Business episode, which is like so funny and smart. And like, I feel like it was such a good premise idea in the sense that it feels like, oh my gosh, how has this story just now been told? Like this idea of like, the robbers that come into the bank. It's like so brilliant. Like I feel like a really, really good idea is when it's like, I can't believe this is the first time somebody is doing this, when it feels like it could have been, like there's like a lot of stories of like a couple robbing a bank. Like I'm thinking, this one thing that this reminded me of was Pulp Fiction, and the couple that goes in and robs the bank. Maybe there's other stories of like I think there's like stories of like, okay, we know each other and we're going to go in and rob this bank. Maybe there's tons of stories of like, I'm in a bank and it's getting robbed. But like this idea of like somebody's robbing the bank and I know them, I think it's just such a smart angle to that kind of story. So I'm excited to talk about it. And this whole show is I haven't watched the second season yet, sadly. But I watched the whole first season in one sitting. It's 5 episodes, so I guess it's not like such a feat. But it was so good. I wanted to watch like one episode, and then I just kept being like, let me see what else, and what else. It was so good, and I'm really sad to hear that the show is canceled. We'll get into that, but like I just think it's very depressing that, oh gosh, are we doing it now? This little sad rant. Yeah, I think it's depressing that the idea that like numbers decide if you get another season, but like if white people don't resonate with what you're doing, then you don't get the numbers and then you can't get another season. And it just becomes like, one, why does all art have to kind of like be entertaining to like a majority audience? And then also, why are they not interested? Like, why are more people not interested in something unless there's a white person in it? Especially when people of color are kind of like made to watch, or not made to watch, but like relate to or can relate to shows or books or music or whatever that there's no representation of them in, because they are like, okay, well, I still relate on the themes, or like I still can like, imagine myself a part of this, because even if I can't see myself, we're all experiencing life together or whatever, or I relate to like the themes that experiences or whatever, not specifically, but more generally or more universally, that these characters or musicians or artists or writers are going through, and it's like, that was what makes it classic, so to speak. But if you flip it and then it's like a black piece of art, or like just, from some other culture, then white people are like, oh, I can't relate. And it's like, what? One, does that mean that you do not see these people as human like you, and so you can't relate to them on a human level? Or two, are you only interested in your specific experience and therefore are just like totally uninterested in what everyone else is doing or saying? And what does that mean? Like, that is white supremacy. Oh God, we're just started. We're coming in hot. The storm is coming and we are coming in hot. So anyway, I find it very annoying that it was canceled. And, that happens to like all kinds, like that happens to writers, that happens to, Rap Shit is another really, really good show that I love that had 2 seasons because the numbers weren't there. And it's like, it's not that people aren't watching it or people aren't excited about it or people aren't moved by it. It's that like white people aren't. and that's the money, and we don't care if that's not happening, is my opinion on that. I don't know all the facts, but I just find it very annoying. So anyway, hello, I'm here. I'm annoyed and I have a cold. And the weather, like in Atlanta right now, the update is it's gonna icy rain tonight. It's going to icy rain all tomorrow. And then the temperatures are going to be below freezing for like 5 days. So I have a lot of I have canned salmon, canned beef, canned chicken, which I've never had any of these in a can. I have, all the things for me, and my partner will be hunkered down. So hopefully that's enough. I will report back next week and let you know how it goes. Anyway, so all of that to say, 5 minutes already, but here we go. What I typically do on these episodes are talk about what is this, weird black art about. I decided to add a new category, which is what themes came up, which might be interesting. What did I like about it? What was weird about it? What it reminded me of? I'll do favorite quotes, and then we'll talk a little bit about what's going to come next week. Okay? Thanks for hanging out. I try to keep it, like, my goal is, an ideal goal would be like 20 minutes. I feel like that's like a nice, tight episode, but typically it's like 26 minutes, so we'll see how it goes. Anyway, okay. So what's it about? This is what I wrote. I said, Vince Staples goes to a bank and asks for a loan, and they are super condescending, like really, it's like, okay, let me finish the description before I go into another tangent. And then the bank gets robbed, and he knows the robbers, LMAO, all right? So he works with them since he can't leave the building, is like the plot. But the condescending part, I think, is really interesting because it takes all of these, like, gaslighting things, which they also mentioned in the episode, and then it sort of makes them explicit in a way that's like surreal, but also like, this is what you're doing when you're doing this other thing that's like a little bit harder for me to call out. You're doing this, right? And to be able to show that in a way that's surreal, but also is just like really poignant, because it's like, yeah, everybody knows how that feels. Like, every black person knows how that feels, and to show it and then to flip it and in a way that was like very interesting, because it was like you flip the power dynamic, but it's not like it's kind of a revenge fantasy, but it's not like a revenge fantasy as in like people call Native Son Richard Wright's novel. Oh gosh, my associative brain is now like Richard Wright. I'm reading James Baldwin. There's like a new James Baldwin biography about his love life, but it's so interesting because it's like about these figures that he was dating, but also about like all of his life, in between those figures. And I'm at the part where he's like beefing with Richard Wright, which is so interesting. Anyway, so yeah, people call like Richard Wright's Native Son a revenge fantasy, because it's like, okay, you guys were expecting me to be this monster. Well, now I'm this monster. What are you going to do? And it's kind of like the way that in the novel it happens is an accident, but then it's sort of like he just leans into the character, like the character leans into like the persona of this like violent black boy / man. And so that people kind of like called that revenge fantasy, and then that was sort of like a whole genre. Or if you think about like Blaxploitation films, sometimes people think of those as revenge fantasies of like, it's interesting because revenge sounds so like petty, I guess, or like like optional. You chose this bad choice, which was revenge. But I think it's more like catharsis for constantly being oppressed to imagine a world in which you can fight back. And maybe it's super violent, but like what I liked about this episode is it's not really violent. Like the violence actually comes at the end of the episode. I don't know if I should give spoilers or not, we'll see. But like it comes at the end of the episode, and not by these black men who are robbing this bank, right? And it's like it kind of is a nod to like, who is actually violent? Like, is it these guys here who are just trying to get by? Or is it like the systems that are put in place that are like inherently violent, but they're also like just our environment, so everyone just like doesn't always see the violence of that, unless there's like, okay, for example, ICE and what's happening now. Like, okay, this is white supremacy and it's explicitly violent and we can see it. And so people are freaking out, right? When a police killing is recorded, we can see it, and people are like, oh, the system is violent, and they're freaking out, right? But like, I think that for black people, or at least for me and the people in my life, it's like, I would say for most black people, or I don't know. I don't want to speak for black people, but I would say in my experience, the people in my community who are black, it's like none of that violence is surprising because it's every day. Like it's like these explicit, like peak violent, visceral, practical moments, and it's also just like asking for a loan and the woman's laughing in your face, even though she doesn't know anything about you. Or who, like at the beginning of the episode, he comes up, she doesn't even look at him in the eye, and then she's like, the bathrooms are just for clients, right? That's violent. That's violent too. And it's like, we're living in that every day. So, gosh, we're already 10 minutes in. This is a ranty one. Anyway, so yeah, I just thought the way that this was depicted, both like how condescending and violent it is, like in microaggressions and kind of macro, but like interpersonal aggressions, and then flipping it, but in a way that's like just playing with agency and power in a different way without it being like this like slasher situation is like very interesting. Okay, what themes came up? Trying to move along. One that I loved was like the vulnerability and like I was trying to figure out how to say it, like black male friendship. I don't love like male or female as like a term because it feels very like weird and scientific kind of, and also just like, I don't know, weird. I don't know. I don't like black male, black female. Like it feels like weirdly not human feeling, or male, female. Like it just feels like sciencey to me. Anyway, let me not like talk about this for 5 minutes. But anyway, so black men friendship, black friendship with black guys, I would say. Or friendship with black guys. I don't know. Anyway, okay, that's getting weirdly spirally. I'm a writer, so I'm like, what is the language? What is the language? But you know what I mean. I love that these black guys were friends with each other, and they were also so vulnerable with each other of like how they're feeling and like what's going on. Like Vince Staples says, you can talk to me, man. This is a safe space. And it's just like, I don't know. I mean, I know that that's maybe part of this realness of like, we're in this bank and we're being so vulnerable while we're robbing it, but also it's like, that's what we all need, our friends that we can talk to and that we can be vulnerable with. And I think that like for some guys, like I think that, I mean, I don't know, I'm around like my partner's an artist, I'm around a lot of guys who are artists, and I think that's like a different group. Like I think to be an artist, you have to be in touch with how you feel, and you have to be able, I would argue you would have to be able to in touch with how you feel, and also be able to communicate well, because that's what art is like expressing your ideas and your thoughts and your emotions. But I would say that for some guys, like, you know, that veer more toward like traditional masculinity, it's like, you know, being stoic and not talking about your feelings is a part of that. And that's so alienating, because as humans, part of what makes us feel alive and connected is being in connection with other people, is being transparent about how we feel, and is being vulnerable. Like, I don't feel good. I said everything was cool, but it's not, you know, and being able to have that transparency is really important. And I liked how in this episode where they really didn't have to do that because they're literally robbing a bank, that juxtaposition between like, we're here, we're doing this, we're in control, and also like, we're not in control and stuff is going on, and how do we work it out? And like Vince Staples said, they wouldn't even give me a loan, bro. And like that vulnerability to this guy who looks up to him, you know, I think was really sweet and important to show. So I thought the vulnerability of black male friendship was a really sweet theme in this and a great juxtaposition to all the action. And then another theme I think is white supremacy, like what I was saying, how condescending that can feel to people who aren't white, specifically to black people, but, you know, kind of to everyone who's not white. And then how surreal it can feel to live in a world that's oriented around white culture, white supremacy, white people. Not every single white person experiences white supremacy and white privilege in the same ways, but like the world, I would at least say America and the Western world is oriented toward people who look like that. And so if you don't look like that, then it creates all these like weird decisions you have to make. Are you going to be someone who tries to assimilate into that and just like eschew your difference and your community so that like they'll accept you, which would make you like arguably a sellout and also still not white? Or are you someone who's like, I don't want anything to do with that world and I want to like live within my own world, which makes a lot of sense to me, you know, but it's not always possible if you like have to interact with white people. And also like, you know, not all white people are experiencing it the same way, but like it is, you know, there's a lot there with that. Like, you know, there are white people who are also oppressed because of they're queer or because they're disabled or because of these other things. But I think if you aren't white, like you see white privilege in a way that like white people, regardless of where they are within the like priorities of, and, you know, preferences of white supremacy, like regardless of where they are, regardless of how they're oppressed within that system. Like if you're not in that system, if you're outside of it, you can see white privilege in a way that they can't. And I think that can be really alienating when you're interacting with white people. And so it makes sense if you're someone who wants to like separate, or if you're someone who wants to like have honest conversations and be like, what kind of white person are you? And you have to be a kind of white person that can hang if I can hang with you. You know, like there's like all these like things and decisions and choices that Black people have to make, you know, because we live in this world that's oriented around white supremacy. And I think that like the ways that Ben Staples in this episode shows that both in like the Black world that him and his friends create within this white world, which I think was just like really striking and beautiful, and in how he shows how alienating racism can be, like I think was really interesting. And also it kind of reminds me of like the Z-Way interview, how he was sort of saying like explicitly like, I'm a part of this Black world, I don't care if most of my fans are white, like I don't care, you know. And that choice, and like how some people loved it and were like, oh my god, I can't believe he said that. Some people were like, I can't believe he said that, you know. And just like the choices that you have to make and how as you grow you might make different choices is really interesting. I'm reading James Baldwin's biography right now, which I'm like, I never really read a biography before. And I thought that would be boring, but I'm like, oh my god, I think I don't know if I just love this one or if I love biographies in general, but I'm like, it's awesome because it's like a history, but it's also like a story of a person, which makes it like really like compelling because they're making all these choices and like they're choosing, you know. And I'm at the part where I'm like 100 pages into this biography, and like James Baldwin like basically like strikes down Richard Wright, who was his mentor, so that he, and like in this essay, he kind of like, he compares Richard Wright's Native Son, which is this like super arguably radical, some people say not, you know, Black novel from 1940. He's like the super like way above it, before its time novel. He James Baldwin compares it to Uncle Tom's Cabin, and he says they're the same, and like then he blows up within like the white world of the white publishing world. He like blows up from that essay where he kind of like separates himself from what at the time Richard Wright was like the most famous Black writer at that time, and he like struck him down to become noticed in this white world. And like that's kind of the choice he made at that moment. And you know, obviously he goes back and forth and he says different things, and he's like this racial icon for Black people, like racial icon, or racial icon sounds weird, like racial spokesperson for Black people, but like he's talking to white people. Some, you know, it's like anyway, it's like that same thing of like, what do you choose? And there's a lot of different choices, and you know, I'm not here to say that some are good and some are bad and you should do this, like I don't know you. But like I just think it's interesting, those choices, and like how, yeah, like what we make and what we choose, etc. Okay, I got on a little tangent there. So let me see. Yeah, so but some quotes here, you know, kind of showing that surrealness of living in a world that's sort of like oriented around white supremacy. The bank teller says, "I don't want to make you feel small, Mr. Staples." And it's like, but that's exactly what you're doing. And then by saying that you're not trying to do that, you're kind of like making me seem like I'm the problem for feeling that way. And then he asks him later, "Do you have a digital consciousness created after you die?" Because he's kind of like trying to tell him that he doesn't have enough money to get this loan, even though he has like a ton of money. And it's just like this idea of like, yeah, you're not, I don't know what we want, and yet we're going to make it feel like it's you and not us. It's like causing this problem of rejection. And I don't know if I said this yet, but he says, he's talking on the phone with his friend, and he says, it's been a really difficult day. And he says, you know, typical shit, redlining, gaslighting, gatekeeping. And I just feel like that was like very prevalent in the episode, and also just generally true. Oh gosh, okay, we're running out of time. All my ranting, it's about to be iced in, and I have a cold. And you know, I usually go on a run on Saturday mornings, but I wanted to record before the power goes out, you know, in case I don't know, I'm putting in quotes, in case it goes out. So I haven't done my run, so I'm just kind of like, the world, I'm mad. But also, it makes sense to be mad. There's a lot going on. Anyway, okay, so let's talk about what I liked about it to go a little more positive. I loved the head robber character, I thought he was perfect. I thought the actor did such a good job. It was like so perfect. It should definitely be more stuff. And the juxtaposition between like him like beating up somebody off camera, which is also important. Like they didn't like make this episode super violent so as to not, I mean, also one, so as to not maybe perpetuate the stereotypes, but also maybe because that's not the point. You know, like this is just a flip. This is a response to the violence that was already happening, and so to like highlight the physical violence of beating somebody up, like makes it seem as if this is where this started. Like the violence started here, as opposed to like this is a response to the violence that was happening before, which is like the we're laughing at you for asking for a loan. We're not shaking your hand after the deal. We're like humiliating you. That's also a violence, even if it's not like physical. What does it say? Sticks and stones may hurt my bones. Oh, sticks and stones may break my bones, but words will never hurt me. But they do hurt you, and they are violent also. And sometimes physical violence is in response to emotional violence, right? Or psychological violence. Like those things can be in conjunction. It's not like the physical violence is always where the thing started. There was might have been something that happened before. Often there is. Anyway. Okay, so what I liked about it, I love the head bank robber's complexity, how he beat someone up, and then Ben Staples was like, do you want what's it called, espresso too? And he said, can I have a cloud macchiato without too much foam? It's like the complexity there, like a sensitivity or like attention to detail alongside, you know, this like I'm robbing a bank, I have this giant gun thing. And then also like how the guy rounded up all the hostages, but he was like, oh, you're pregnant, oh my gosh, how far along are you, you're carrying it really well. It's just like, I don't know, I thought that was lovely. The details, the script throughout, I thought, and just the writing was super good. Yeah, just kind of like thinking about all those details and how they circle back around. Okay, let's go into, and I just want to say too, I love this whole season, especially another episode. I was trying to torn on which episode to talk about, but I loved the one where Ben Staples' mom character and the girlfriend were at the cookout. I found that very relatable, and it just was like really well done and like sweet. That was a great one. And then also I love the amusement park one. It was hilarious. And that one honestly is probably like the weirdest one, but I thought this one was just so like iconic in the flipping a power that I wanted to do this one, but those were both great. Okay, what was weird about it? Okay, we're rocking and rolling. Let's try to get this going. Okay, what was weird about it? I loved when he was presenting the cereal pitch and he said, kapow! And like how it's just like so quiet throughout the episode really, but then there's like these kind of like bursts of energy and movement, or energy and like, I don't know, these moments that are like really striking because everything else is so like almost low stimulation kind of, which I've been really into lately. Like things, I just got, I don't know if I can pull it out, there's a lot down there, but I got a new e-reader that's like it's called a Books Palma 2. I'm like e-reader nerd. Oh my gosh, I'm so many e-readers. But like it's small and it looks like a phone basically, and it's like, but it's like a phone, but it's an e-reader and it's all e-ink, and it's not even an e-reader. It's like it has everything. You could like put different apps on it, but it's like, I think I'm just like into things that are like, this is like being on my phone except it's so low stimulation, right? And I feel like this show, in a lot of ways, even though so much is happening, it feels kind of like low stimulation and weirdly like calming to watch, even when a lot's going on, which is interesting. So I liked that too. Okay, what else was weird? The friend that was like, he's farming chickens, and then he's like, I have so many, thousands and thousands of chickens, and then he offers him some lemon pepper chicken. That even the juxtaposition between like farming, I mean, that's not really a juxtaposition, that's kind of like the natural order of farming, but that was just like an interesting twist. The woman at the bank who was trying to take all those little chocolates and put them in her bag, even though the bank was under robbery. It was funny. Just like a lot of like weird, silly things. And then the janitor obviously was like very interesting, humming Wade in the Water and giving that speech that like linked it all back to slavery, which is like, I don't know. I think it was such a brilliant episode because like, yeah, it is linked back to, like, this is all tied together. It is, you know, it just feels very striking because it's like we forget the context of these current moments, and it's like very infuriating when it's like some of us remember or some of us have never forgotten, and then other of us have never had to remember, and it's just like, yeah, it could just be like frustrating. So alas. And then the end was weird. I won't spoil it, but that was crazy, and it just kind of made the whole thing feel more bizarre, like, oh my god, what is happening? what is happening, and also like it's like very tightly tied together the whole time, which is interesting. Okay, what it reminded me of, Set It Off, obviously, which it got a shout out here, that kind of like caused everything to start to crumble, or like it was kind of like the climax and then the down, you know. But I love Set It Off, so I would prefer, if you've seen the episode, yeah, I would prefer to be a Queen Latifah. I mean, I guess not in that movie, but the movie was great. Anyway, and then Atlanta obviously reminded me of that. And then, yeah, it reminded me of Rap Shit in the sense that, like, both this show and that show are very brilliant. They have a niche audience, which niche just being non-white, being black. And, you know, it's not enough numbers-wise to create more under these companies, which is very frustrating. As someone who's like, you should be able to make art for people specifically, and for other people to be, you know, for HBO or Netflix or these companies to be like, actually, you know, it didn't have mass appeal, it didn't have white appeal, means that like you can't do it again. It's like, cool. You know, this is like very frustrating, because it's like, that's violent to say, you know, if white people don't like it, then we can't keep doing it. You know, that's why it's what violent in the sense that it's white supremacy, and white supremacy is violent. Instead of being like, okay, we have so much profit from everybody paying $20 a month to watch our shows, we can fund these shows that, like, you know, a specific demographic's gonna watch, instead of being like, we don't care anymore. You know, it's frustrating. But so it reminded me of Rap Shit, because I love that show too, and it also got canceled after 2 seasons. And I think Harlem is canceled. But that had 3 seasons. Did it have 3? Maybe it just had 2. I can't remember. But that was another show. It's like, guys, you can't keep, I don't know, it just feels very frustrating. Anyway, we gotta wrap this up. Some favorite quotes. I mean, the most iconic quote was when they was at the bank and he was calling out Vince Staples' character, and then he turned around and he said, "I know that's not the homie." I thought that was hilarious. And just like, this is like, that's why I was like, this episode is iconic. I can't believe they thought of that, and I can't believe nobody has done that before that I know of. And then when they're talking about, like, the guy's like, I wish I could be like you know, with these white people. And Vince Staples was like, you know, they're rich, powerful, but they're ugly, you know. And it's just like, both maybe outside, we're just like, okay, that's a little more mean. But, like, also inside, it's like, they laughed. I came here serious, and they were laughing at me and did not respect me at all. And then expect me to just walk away and assume it was my own fault, you know. And it's like, that's ugly. My mom used to say when I was a kid, when me and my sisters were acting out, she would say, you're not ugly, but you're acting ugly. And God doesn't like ugly. I think those two were tied. But, like, it's like, yeah, like, you know, you're acting ugly, and that makes you ugly. And anyway, and then when he called him ugly, the other guy said super ugly. Just like, I love black art that can flip, you know, that's like let's just imagine, let's respond to this. We can't respond to it in the real world because, you know, it will lead to our demise, you know, always, or not always, but, like, you know, often. It's very violent, you know, Black Panthers, Malcolm X, like, you know, if you try to fight back, you know, often it leads to violence. Like, thinking about Judas and the Black Messiah, also, that movie is just, like, really sad and frustrating. But you can make art, you know, and sometimes it gets canceled because it's not for a mass audience, but, like, it's important because it gives people energy to keep figuring out ways to respond without just, like, lying down, you know. And I really appreciate that with this. Okay, oh my god, this is so long. So that's it. Shout out to that show. Definitely, maybe we'll circle back and do another episode. Let me know what your favorite episodes were. We can maybe do some more later. And then next week is movie week. So okay, I've got some options that I'll just tell you now. You can vote on Substack. I typically just put it there so that it's all in one place, but maybe I can also put it on YouTube in case people want to vote here. But if you, on Substack, I have, like, a little newsletter that has, like, the video, the notes, and some, like, interviews and stuff, and then the polls there. So if you put in your email, I mean, you don't have to do this, but then you could get it in your email, and then you could just vote there. But you could also just click the link in the description to vote. What was I going to say? To vote, just go to, you don't have to, like, sign up. You could just vote on Substack. Or maybe I could just put it on YouTube. I could try to figure out how to do that. Anyways, Okay, so Native Son, which I've been talking about, the Richard Wright book. Susan Laurie Parks did like a black punk version that's super good, super weird, super cool. I loved it. So that's an option for movie week. Atlantic, so I just talked about before, which is like this like ghost story. Really, really, really good. French, like Black French, or I think it's maybe Senegalese. Let me look it up real quick. Oh gosh, sorry, so much time. Let's see. What's it called? Atlantics. It's on Netflix. It's really, really good. Atlantics movie. Sorry. Okay. Atlantics. Dakar. Yeah. So it's Senegalese, and it's really. I think it's somebody in the comments says Atlantique is like, you know, the French title, and then Atlantics I guess is like the American. I guess I didn't think we could say Atlantique, but anyway, that we could watch that. Or we could talk about that. That's a really good one. You could watch it and then report back next week. So we've got Native Son, Atlantics. We could also talk about Space is the Place, which is like a very weird. I should honestly probably watch it before I like commit to talking about it online. I've seen it before, but I remember it being kind of intense. But anyway, we could talk about that too. I love that movie. Space is the Place, Atlantics, Native Son. If you have other options, you can put them in the comments or on here or on Substack, and we could talk about that too. We'll see. I'm kind of open to anything. And yeah, my vote is for Native Son, honestly, this time, even though I really want to talk about Atlantics too. But let me know what your vote is for, and we'll go from there. And thank you for watching. Stay warm with the storm. Ooh, that rhymes. Stay warm with the storm. And I will talk to you guys next week. Report back on how it went here in my neighborhood, at least. And then we'll go from there. Thanks. Bye.